महर्षि सिद्ध संगाः
स्वस्ति युक्त्वा महर्षि सिद्धसङ्गाः
स्तुवन्ति त्वां स्तुतिभिः पुष्कलाभिः
स्तुवन्ति त्वां स्तुतिभिः पुष्कलाभिः
स्तुवन्ते त्वां स्तुतिभिः पुष्कलाभिः
स्तुवन्ति त्वां स्तुतिभिः पुष्कलाभिः
अमीहि त्वां सुरसङ्गा विशन्ति
मीहि त्वां सुरसङ्गा विशन्ति
केचित् भीता प्राञ्जलयो गृह्णन्ति
केचित् भीता प्राञ्जलयो गृह्णन्ति
स्वस्ति युक्त्वा महर्षि सिद्धसङ्गाः
स्वस्ति युक्त्वा महर्षि सिद्धसङ्गाः
स्तुवन्ते त्वां स्तुतिभिः पुष्कलाभिः
स्तुवन्ति त्वां स्तुतिभिः पुष्कलाभिः मीहि त्वां सुरसङ्गा विशन्ति केचित् भीता प्राञ्जलयो गृह्णन्ति स्वस्ति युक्त्वा महर्षि सिद्धसङ्गाः स्तुवन्ति त्वां स्तुतिभिः पुष्कलाभिः
Okay. सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्तिः चन्द्रमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे पावनं जङ्गमं व्याप्तं यत्किञ्चित् सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे चिन्मयं व्याप्य सर्वं त्रैलोक्यं सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन प्रथितां पुराणं मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्ततामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः शृण्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषत् गायन्ति यं सामगा ज्ञानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै So we do 26, 27, 28. Patram pushpam padam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachyati tadaham bhaktyupadakam ashnami prayatatmanah yad karoshi yadasnasi yad juhoshi dadasi yat yad tahasyasi kaunteya tad kurushva madarpanam शुभाशुभफले देवं मोक्षसे कर्मबन्धनैः संन्यासयोगयुक्तात्मा विमुक्तो मामुपैष्यसि. Is giving us the result way of devotion is expressed in which devotion our by your mind with and verse 27 the transaction we are carrying out at all different levels of body, mind, where he says whatever we give charity. If we offer all this to the Lord in this new way, then yes, that free from yielding good and so Lord Krishna is about the Bhagavad Gita, pointing out the various paths, right from all different things and how they get lost, or they attain complete union with self, various different. So he is bringing several in this karma yoga and bringing them together in such a way makes us to understand very clearly the whole point really that Arjuna lost sense of identity, being in sense of identity, grief. These people. So the royal secret in this case is what? Royal secret title of this hidden reality which is we have ourselves experience which suffering. So the secret right in front available to you but tied up with not see this practice getting. So how do we go about doing that and get that? How one can dedicate all one's time in a spirit of offering. And we think about, what does it mean, offering, and what is this act? And how do we kind of bring the moment, whatever we are doing, how is every moment, so that he becomes somebody that he is here in such a way that reality. What happens is that freed from the bonds and the mind will become first in. So not only in action, but also of renunciation from root of the action trapped by this purification takes place, cleansing takes place, and virgin glory of the self in us. So the fast conditioning here with this, that brings that cleansing expression of. So what he says is this is something possible. Is that the way in this can be done really and it's achievable, all of us. So, in other words, what Rose is saying, this stanza provides us efficient and secret method by which reality is always there is in our awareness all the time. It becomes a very powerful wisdom comes of anger and renunciation. Nyasa, mind which is steadfast in reality for us. And with that comes liberation. So the liberation from this sense of identity in mind ultimate liberation cycle of, so that there is no coming back and get released from. So going on is that how does this break and what happens? How does this reality? How is it ultimate kind of relationship between that reality itself?
मोहं सर्वभूतेषु
समोऽहं सर्वभूतेषु
मे द्वेष्योऽस्ति न प्रियः
न मे द्वेष्योऽस्ति न प्रियः
ये भजन्ति मां भक्त्या
ये भजन्ति मां भक्त्या
मयि ते तेषु चाप्यहम्
मयि ते तेषु चाप्यहम् समोऽहं सर्वभूतेषु न मे द्वेष्योऽस्ति न प्रियः ये भजन्ति मां भक्त्या मयि ते तेषु चाप्यहम्
Same am I to all beings. Me there is none here. Those who worship are in. Here, second says they are in. Saying they are in me, I'm not in me. First of all, you're saying I'm in there. And here he says they are in me. So remember that this contract. One of reality, relative reality, the other one, absolute reality. So looked at it from one point, it looks like contradictory. Looked at it the other point. So, and we explained in possible, so that even snake in the rope, Raj in the, all these are ways of and relative reality and the substratum, one which is upholding this Raj, which is look at the world, see it, experience it. So something which is experienced and which is not. Right? I mean, that which is, for example, directly experienced, known, and the senses are telling us. So it's it, the sense of the mind. The water in the desert, we actually go place where we pour the water. And so although it was this very realistic way, this water in the investigated. The other thing, when we are looking at we are saying to ourselves, this is the reality that that reality is going to quench my thirst. That's the other part, which is the important part. Why? Because when we look at the world, we see this world of names and forms. We see material things, and we say to ourselves, that is going to quench my thirst. Things, beings, happenings, and when we say this reality which I'm looking at here now is going to fulfill my desires which are arising in me, and this world which is the phenomenal world, although it is a mirage, becomes the way in which I'm going to interact with the world for the fulfillment of my desire. So then this transactional life becomes about what? It becomes about fulfillment of our desire through the world of names and forms. So we see how this phenomenal world has become the only thing which is now grabbing our attention because it becomes the fulfiller of our desire. So that transactional reality is completely different from the absolute reality. And when our life is focused on the relative reality, the absolute reality goes out of our perspective. It goes out of our focus. It's just the same. When I look at the snake, when I look at that object in the darkness, my focus is just on the snake because there is no enlightenment. There is no light which is telling me actually this is not a snake, it is a rope. And when my eyes get fixated on the snake, I respond according to that particular perception, and with that perception comes a lot of pain and suffering and fear. So all these things mean that if this reality then becomes hidden, this substratum has now become hidden because our focus has not penetrated this phenomenal world, then that hidden reality remains hidden because our focus is on the phenomenal world. And as long as it remains there, we're going to experience this suffering. So all these things are meant for what? If we see how Lord Krishna is giving us the practical means of going beyond this phenomenal world, so that when we see the mirage, when we see the snake, when we see the ghost, we have to keep on reminding ourselves that there is a substratum which is beyond this. Okay? And he's brought it down right to the level of our day-to-day transaction, moment-to-moment thought. And how can we go beyond this delusion into the reality of what is there? So here he is saying, the same am I to all beings. So, in other words, the same conscious principle is underlying all the beings. Okay? So there is, and in the next 2 or 3 stanzas, he will tell us how this, although it is the same conscious principles operating in all of us, it is not necessarily manifesting in all of us. Okay? And these layers and layers and layers of conditioning which are covering it up, because our attention has been turned to the transactional world of names and forms, does not allow it to manifest itself. And the whole point is to purify all that conditioning through this transactional devotion, so that with that purification comes the manifestation of the divine. So he says the self in one is the same self in all beings. That's why I'm saying the same am I to all beings. This is the conscious principle which is operating in all the creatures and all the beings. Just like the electricity is functioning through all the equipments in this house. And all the equipments have got a different makeup. All the equipment have got different nature. So the light is not the same as a cooker, and the cooker is not the same as a fridge, and they all express themselves in different ways. Okay. So this idea will come up again and again, and we need to just remind ourselves that the electricity is one, the expression of electricity is different according to the nature of the equipment. So each one of us has got a different nature. Some are fridges, some are cookers, some are lights. So, tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic. Some illuminate the whole world. Okay? And these are the sattvic people who illuminate the whole world, make light for everybody. Whereas other people are rajasic and tamasic. So this same principle is there. And just like he's saying, the same sun illumines all the objects in the world, and its rays get reflected on all surfaces according to the nature of the surface. Okay. So this he's making this statement just to make sure that we understand, number one, that the principle is the same in all of us. Number two, to then explain that the expression of this divinity will be different according to the nature of the object or the nature of the being. And following from there, he says, to me, there is none hateful or dear. In other words, the Lord is not partial. How do we explain this? We say, no, Lord is not partial. We're saying none is hateful to me or none is dear to me. So,
but later on he goes on to say, these are all the attributes which are dear to me.
Yeah.
So that is the person who is dear to me.
Yes,
I think
yes.
like chapter 14 or
That's
something.
right. That's right. So we'll see all these kind of differences in the sense of understanding that on the one side he says, there is none hateful and dear. On the other hand, he says the Jnani is the most dearest to me. Okay. Now, how do we explain all this? Because he says, on the one hand, I'm not partial. On the other hand, saying I'm very partial to some people. So partiality means what? Partiality in this sense, we have got to understand in the context of purity and in the context of divine expression. So what does it mean? It means that just like he is saying here that it is not the sun is impartial. Okay, the sun is impartial. It's not going to say I'm going to shine more on this surface and less on this surface. It is impartially shining on everything, but it is shining more on some surfaces, and we begin to think that the sun is partial to this surface. Why? Because it's shining more on this thing. And if you look at it from that point of view, then we say, oh, why is the sun shining on this one more than it is shining on the dark surface? Okay, so if we take a dark cloth and we take the mirror, we will see that it is shining much more on the mirror than it is shining on the dark cloth. So from one point of view, it means that the sun is partial, that it only shines on objects which are reflecting its light. On the other hand, if we understand the relationship between the sun and the object, we see that the sun will shine more on those objects which have the capacity for more reflection. So if you understand that it is in the nature of the object itself which will determine how much the shining is going to be there, then we understand that there's going to be a difference in terms of the reflection which is going to be there. Now this can be seen as, so the sun can say, actually, I'm not partial to anything which is going to reflect my light, but on the other hand, those which are pure, those which are reflecting surfaces will reflect my light much more than those which are not. Now, if we personalize that statement, then the sun can say, I like these shiny surfaces because they reflect my light the more. Now, this has now been personalized in that sense. Okay, so if we want to understand it in that personalized way, then Lord Krishna can say, the Jnanis are the most beloved to me. Why? Because they shine my light the greatest. So, and Gurudev explains to us in this similar way. He says that It is um, if the light is falling on a dull, rough surface of a rock, then it will not reflect that light. But on the other hand, if it is falling on a bright, polished facet of a jewel, then it will reflect it in a much more brilliant way. Now, so from that absolute point of view, then there is no partiality in the sense that if this is the same principle which is operating in all the beings, then there can be nothing different in all these beings in their essence. In their essence, they are one and the same thing. And he says that if the same self is in Krishna and Buddha and Shankaracharya and Christ, in a lunatic and a murderer, in the good and the bad, that how is it that some acquire this divine status and others live like worms? It is saying that it all depends on the nature of that being and whether it is able to express that divinity or not. And that again depends on the nature of that person, depends on all that past conditioning, depends on the uh, the, the ignorance which is there, and depending on all these things, it says it will mean that some things are going to reflect more than the others. But on the other hand, he says, to me, there is none hateful or dear. I am present in all the beings equally. That's the point he's making. So, having kind of understood that, it's in the nature of the being that how much this, divinity is going to be expressed. He says that the greater the purity, the greater the reflection is going to be there. And this relationship, he says, is very important for us to understand. That on the one hand, there is the same principle in all of us. On the other hand, that there is no partiality. And he says that depending on the purity now, and that purity is created by what? What is that purity going to be created by?
Sadhana.
By our sadhana, by what he has laid down in the last two stanzas. Thereby he says, but those who worship me with devotion, I am in them and they are in me. So, we've got a kind of, three ways of understanding. So in stanza number 4, he was saying that they are in me, I'm not in them. And number 5, he's saying they are not in me, I'm not in them. And then he says they are in me and I'm also in them. So in other words, that if we understand it from the absolute point of view, the transaction point of view, and from the complete merger which has taken place through this purity and through this sadhana, then there is no difference. So partial expression through partial purity and complete expression through complete purity. In other words, what state is he describing here is the state of complete merger. In other words, that there is now no difference between the individual Atman and Brahman. So the two have come together and merged as one. Whereby then he can say, I as the absolute, I am in them, and they now as the absolute, not the individual, they are in me. So I'm in them and they are in me only under the condition whereby the complete purity has come about, and with that comes the realization that I am the self, which is the same self in everyone else. So with that, the statement can then be made that they are in me and I am in them. So here, Gurudev also gives us the example about the flower and also the sun. So, this again may be difficult to kind of grasp in the first instance that how is it that the Lord is saying that He is not dear or hateful to anybody, and then the idea that this worship, what He is saying, the worship is talking about, this devotion is talking about. This worship is a technique by which, in essence, the entire thought force in the worshipper is mobilized and turned to flow towards the diviner point of contemplation, ever seeking a total identity with the truth so meditated upon. And the idea behind this is that when this comes to its fruition, when it comes to its the final result of that worship is what? Is this the self with devotion comes to discover that the worshipper himself or herself is none other than the self that is worshipped by them. So the logic is this, that from our individual standpoint, when we do this worship as it is being prescribed here, that every thought, word, and deed is turned towards the Lord, which becomes total worship, and through total worship becomes what? Complete purification. With that complete purification comes the complete divinization of the thought, word, and deed. And with that comes the realization that the self in me is a self in all, and that means Lord Krishna can say, I'm in them and they are in me, because the final kind of merger has taken place. So that's the whole idea. And this hidden reality which is talking about, the royal secret, is nothing but something which is uncovered. That hidden reality is going to be uncovered by this single pointed devotion, Ananya Bhakti, where there is nothing else, single pointed devotion to the Lord in a very specific way, whereby all the transactions are turned towards the divine, and with that intensity of devotion and sadhana, this hidden knowledge is revealed to us as a direct experience. So this is the essence of this kind of teaching, which is giving us here. So now Gurudev gives us this example of the flower, whereby he says the idea is not that the eternal self has any freedom to choose or not to choose one individual from the other. So, in other words, that it is not that the eternal is going to choose one person or not choose another person. And here, referring back to what Lord Krishna is saying, that there is no partiality in terms of any being. But on the other hand, if you think about, it is the individual themselves who create such conditions in themselves, wherein they come to rediscover the self. So given the individual choice, each one of us has got the choice of which path to go on. Do we go on the path of Shreyas, or do we go on the path of praise? That choice is up to us. The Lord is not choosing whether to be partial to one person or the other, but we have a choice. In this individuality, we have a choice which way we want to go. So he gives the example of the lonely flower, which is giving such beautiful fragrance. Lots of people are passing on the path, and not many people will discover the fragrance because they are so preoccupied with their own ideas and their own identity and their own worries and their concerns that they miss the flower. They miss the flower. But he says that some passerby, some rare passerby, becomes conscious of this fragrance, turns around to investigate, and becomes, as it were, blessed by the flower. This is called the blessing of the flower. Why? Because the awareness of was actually there, and with that awareness comes the experience of the fragrance of the flower, and one can say, now this particular person who was aware has been blessed by the flower. So, in the same manner, Lord Krishna says, I am not partial to anybody, but it all depends on you. If you become aware and conscious, then you will be blessed by me. Or you can say, you are very dear to me because you have become aware. So this is a kind of personalization of this idea that, the more we become purified, the more we experience the divine. So in the same manner, he says, now in a winter, inside a room, one suffers from the cold, while outside there's plenty of sunshine. Okay? So inside the house in the winter, it's cold, and he says, but there is plenty of sunshine outside. If I walk out of the room, then the sunshine comes to be blessed by the warmth of the sun, while those who bury themselves in the room suffer from that. As soon as I walk out of the room, it is as if the sun is now blessing me with that warmth. Now, whose fault is it if I stay in the room? If I stay in the cold room, it is only my fault, and therefore the sun is not blessing me in that sense. But as soon as I walk out, then I can say the sun has blessed me with the warmth. So, the whole point of dedicating all our actions to the Lord, all our thoughts to the Lord, all our speech to the Lord, is this preoccupation with the self. When I'm so preoccupied with me and mine, what happens? The idea of Brahman goes out of the window. The idea of God is no longer there because I'm so preoccupied. Just like the flower is there, the fragrance is there, but I am not aware of that fragrance, nor am I aware of the flower, simply because I'm too preoccupied with my own thoughts as I walk along the pathway. As soon as I become aware through this God-centered living, conscious living, then this becomes available to me. So, in the end, the idea is, although there is a royal secret, it's not going to be handed out to us just like that. We have to discover it for ourselves. So he says, is this path now only available for the good? In other words, that is there partiality in terms of who is going to get to this point whereby if you are good, then you will reach there. If you are a bad person, there is no chance. Forget about it. Okay, you will keep on going around and around this cycle of birth and death, and there is no release for it. Lord Krishna says, even if the most sinful worship me, then he has right resolved and he will come to me. So here he is going to tell us in the next two stanzas as to what happens to such a person. So let's chant number 30.
Api chet suduracharah bhajate mam ananyabhak sadhureva samantavyah samyak vyavasito hi saha. Api chet suduracharah bhajate mam ananyabhak sadhureva samantavyah samyak vyavasito hi saha.
So this very wicked person, Sudurachar. Durachar and Sudurachar, very wicked person. And the sadhu, the righteous person, he says the transformation from one to the other is absolutely possible. Okay. He says, even if the most sinful worship me with devotion to none else or with single pointedness, again this word comes about, this word which is Ananya Bhak, which means with devotion to none else, Ananya, none else. He says, single pointedness, he too should indeed be regarded as righteous, for he has rightly resolved. So there is hope for everybody, in other words. Even if you think that there is no hope for me, Lord Krishna says, no, there is hope for you as well. Everybody is included in this particular path. There is none which is going to be excluded. And the most sinful Sadurachar, who is a wicked person in this sense, but practically speaking, what does it mean? It means somebody is completely preoccupied with the me and mine, so much so that he will begin to function in life as a person who has lost his path, somebody who does wrong things, somebody who doesn't understand the truth, somebody doesn't understand what is the difference between right and wrong, good and bad, true and false. And this is a person who is considered to be acting in the world in this kind of way which is taking him away or her away completely from their own inner essence. Okay. And um, um, and in the next one, he points us to the idea of dharmatma. The dharmatma concept is important here, so that we begin to understand why it is possible for this this transformation to be possible, whereby even if somebody is in that kind of state whereby living in complete ignorance of his own true nature, he begins to function in the world in an unrighteous manner and in a wicked manner. He says, but with devotion to none else, worshipping me, he should be regarded as righteous. So he's no longer a wicked person, because now he has rightly resolved. Okay. Rightly resolved, and this means that he has made up his mind. Made up the mind that I am going to follow this path, and even having made that resolve, he can be considered as righteous, as somebody who is a sadhu. Now, what is the thinking behind this? So, he says that the idea on the one hand is that this person has got lost. And this hidden reality which is there is completely unavailable to that person. Why? Because he has become totally preoccupied with just the me and the mind without any reference to this underlying reality. So when that reality is not available, then also the morality goes out of the window. So this person who is in this state of complete ignorance becomes also an immoral person who acts in the world in this immoral way, who does not know the difference between right and wrong, good and bad. And because he is ignorant, in that state of ignorance, one can say this is a sinner. He does not know what he's doing. And when that is the case, he says that he will function in this way, in this wicked, sinful way. And if he decides, if he makes this determination and firm resolve that I am now acknowledging that there is a reality beyond this me and mine, and having acknowledged that reality, has resolved to walk on this path, then he can be said immediately to be regarded as righteous. So, it is not that the worship of the self is only available for the devotee. So this devotion is not excluding anybody. He says, even if you are in that state of, and you remember he had earlier on talked about the Buddha, he had talked about the Asura, he had talked about this people who are in this state of ignorance. He says if they actually take up this Ananya Bhakti, then they will be transformed to become a righteous person. Just like he's giving us the whole logic of how this transformation is going to take place by complete orientation towards God in all our day-to-day transaction. So he says, even if we are at the other extreme, whereby there is nothing available to us, but somehow that resolve is made that I am going to tread on this path now, then that ultimate reality, that hidden secret is going to be available to that person. And he says he should be regarded as a sadhu, he should be regarded as good. And why is that case? Because you can't say that, oh, this is a sinner and now he has resolved and therefore he is now a sadhu. Gurudev explains that this is a kind of language which is being used, just like we say baking the bread. So the bread is already baked, but we say baking the bread. And although we are carrying out this whole process of mixing everything together and baking the bread is already cooked. In other words, that he has now become sadhu simply because he has resolved to walk on this path. So he says such an individual should be considered good and divine because he has rightly resolved. So this resolution is very important. And why is this resolution important? What does it mean, resolution? And the resolution can only come by what? Where do you think this resolution is going to come from? Imagine that this is such a person who is in that state of ignorance, who is living a life which is a wicked life. What is going to change everything? What is going to bring that resolution about?
Narada Muni coming and saying, it's what changed Valmiki's life.
Exactly. So, that complete transformation, imagine, and this is an example of Ratnakar, who was a wicked person. Okay. And what happened to him? What was this complete transformation? Where the Saptarishi came and said something to him. Just a single idea was planted in his mind, and all of a sudden he recognizes and he resolves that this is not the life for me. This is something which is, I'm resolved now to tread this path. So you never know who is going to come into your life and going to change your life forever. Just like it happened to me. I was a very wicked person. And then Gurudev came into my life and it just changed. I said, resolution. Here's my resolution. This is the path I'm going to follow. And just looking into his eyes completely changed my life. Okay. So in the same manner, you never know what's going to change your life. Going in one direction, all of a sudden it takes complete U-turn. You go into a completely different direction. So watch out for these thoughts. Watch out for these people. Watch out for these Mahatmas who can come into your life and change everything once and for all. And through that comes the resolution. Through that comes, and these are rare moments. And if we are watching out for these rare moments, it can accelerate our progress even when we are on the path. These are moments of complete inspiration, whereby we were kind of trudging along on our spiritual path, and all of a sudden we get a very big boost simply because we got our eyes and ears open. And they can give us a big boost so that, we kind of accelerate this process of inner transformation. And this is what happens sometimes when we get so inspired that we make this firm resolution. Now I know with clarity what needs to be done. Now I know what I have to do with my life. The purpose has become clear. The meaning has become clear. And you say to yourself, from tomorrow, I'm going to follow this path in this way. So watch out for those moments, because these are very precious moments. Can turn your life upside down, but it also can accelerate your spiritual progress. That is the path to perfection. So what happens to this person once this resolution has been made? And even if you're at the other end of the spectrum, whereby, and he gives us kind of another, he emphasizes this point in even the next one and the one after that, which some people take exception to, number 32, because it sounds controversial when he talks about who these people are. But Gurudev, as usual, has got a good explanation for that. But before that, he says what happens to this person who was a wicked person, Sudurachara. How does he become a sadhu, and what happens once he becomes a sadhu? He gives us the, so we just chant this verse and then we discuss this in the next class.
Kshipram bhavati dharmatma,
Kshipram bhavati dharmatma,
shashvaschantam nigacchati,
shashvacchantam nigacchati,
kaunteya pratijanihi,
kaunteya pratijanihi,
na me bhakta pranashyati,
na me bhakta pranashyati.
Kshipram
bhavati dharmatma, shashvacchantam nigacchati, kaunteya pratijanihi, na me bhakta pranashyati.
So never destroyed. Once you're there, that's it. It's not going to take care of the yoga and kshema. Once you step on the path, wherever you are, even if you're very far away, you step on the path. Once you step on the path, he says, soon he becomes righteous and attains eternal peace. Know for certain, O Kunteya, that my devotee is never destroyed. Okay. So here's a promise he is making, a very strong statement. He's saying, never destroyed. He's not saying may never be destroyed. He's saying very positive statement that you're never going to be destroyed. Okay. So
Ramesh, with this verse and the previous verse,
yeah.
I'm just thinking, it sounds so much like the way Christians believe as well. It's like, oh, you turn to Jesus, he will forgive you for all your sins. But you have to turn only to Jesus.
That's right.
And now if I'm thinking, which religion should I follow? Should I listen to Krishna's words or should I listen? And both of them are making promises.
Yes.
And both of them are saying you should turn only to me.
That's right. So,
and if I'm not a person who is knowledge enough to understand that both of them are probably referring to their to their formless, the nirguna form.
Yes.
So it's hard for me to then say which one is right.
Exactly. So, and the Christians will say, only Jesus can save. And here, Bhagavad Gita is saying, Lord Krishna is saying, I'm the one who is the only one who can save. Okay. So how to resolve all these differences, right? They can be resolved in the sense that if we take into account the ultimate reality on the one hand, and the different expression of that reality in the Mahatmas and in the avatar. Okay. So the truth is one, but the paths are many. The truth is one, but the names and forms are many.
See, this is where if the paths are many, why do they insist on turn to me alone?
Okay.
That's where it's like they should say, okay, you know, there are different paths. Take any of those paths.
So once we understand this, that if the Christian I mean, somebody is born in that tradition, and somebody says, Jesus is the only way. That's fine. Somebody is born in this tradition, in this culture, and says Krishna is the only way. Right? Everybody is reaching to the same truth, right? The only problem is that when I begin to tell the other culture, forget about your Krishna, mine is the only message. It becomes now political rather than spiritual. Once you bring in the political element, then it gets messed up. As long as you acknowledge that the truth is one, and these are different expressions, you carry on worshipping wherever you carry. Remember earlier Lord Krishna says, don't disturb anybody's faith. From our point of view, don't disturb anybody's faith. Right? If you firmly believe that this is the path and this is the truth, and follow this right up to realizing the truth, that is fine, but don't disturb anybody else who's following any other path. He says that even if you follow any other path, you will eventually come to me. Even in this chapter, he tells us. But as soon as we start making this distinction between, Jesus of Christianity, Krishna of Hinduism, and we say, Yahweh of Judaism, or we say Allah of Islam, and we make this distinction, and we layer it with the power of mine is better than yours, or to say this is the exclusive right of this particular faith to take you to the truth, then that becomes problematic. Okay, so we'll take up this verse in the next session as to what happens to the wicked person who has now become a son. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kasyit Dukha Bhavet, Asato Ma Satgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha.